I'm sitting here with Beth Terry, who has been on a most enlightened journey since 2007 to rid her life of plastic or toxic plastics. And she has a robust website with lots of resources and a great blog, and she's the author of Plastic Free: How I Kicked the Plastic Habit and How You Can Too. So, a practical guide to ridding your life and the planet of plastic. So, Beth, tell me your epiphany story. How did this start for you that got you from being an accountant for business to counting plastic items and pounds of plastic? And did you know you were a writer and a public speaker before this calling came to you?
No, I had no idea. And I'm actually still an accountant.
Oh,
yeah, so I was like the average American. 5 years ago, I was taking double plastic bags at the grocery store and drinking bottled water and throwing the bottles in the trash. And I actually lived on frozen convenience meals, microwavable meals in plastic containers and energy bars in plastic wrappers. And I sort of considered myself to be an environmentalist, but that my actions were not matching my beliefs. And then one night, sitting at my computer, I was browsing the internet, and I stumbled across an article about the plastic pollution problem in the ocean. And 5 years ago, this was not something I'd ever heard of. What shocked me was a photo I saw of a dead albatross chick on Midway Island, which is halfway between the United States and Japan. The chick's body was just completely full of everyday plastic pieces, like bottle caps, things that I was using on a daily basis. And that was shocking, but what was even more shocking was to learn that this island is just completely strewn with similar carcasses of baby birds, because the mother birds are flying out across the ocean to gather food for the chicks and mistaking plastic for food and bringing plastic back and feeding it to them. And they're just dying with their stomachs full of plastic. So that was the very first moment that I made this direct connection between my personal actions and impact on creatures that I hadn't even previously known existed. So I cried for a little bit.
Sad story.
And then I decided just to see what I could do. I wondered what it would be like to try to live without acquiring any new plastic. I just didn't know if it was possible, and I thought it would be a fun thing to try. And I also wondered what my personal plastic footprint was. So I decided to start collecting all my plastic trash. And I set up a bag under my kitchen table, and I would just start putting all my plastic trash in there. I made a website, which is now called myplasticfreelife.com, and I would put pictures of my plastic trash and tally it up. And because I'm an accountant, I made a spreadsheet of it.
Plastic spreadsheet.
And I was really just doing this for myself. I had no idea that it would become so popular and that other people would be interested in my blog and in the ways that I had found to reduce my plastic consumption. But it's a growing movement of people. So in that first month and first 6 months, my plastic waste was huge because I was using up the things that I had already acquired. I didn't go through my house and ditch everything that I already had. I just used things up and would replace them with plastic-free alternatives. So I had huge amounts of plastic. And I brought my plastic from last year to show you.
Oh my goodness. Wait a minute, this is 1 year's worth?
This is 1 year's worth.
How can that be? now I want to say, so when I knew that I was going to be doing this interview, I started collecting just 1 week's worth of plastic, which unfortunately I forgot to bring, but it was this size for 1 week.
This is pretty compact. I mean, feel it. I bet you didn't have
No, that's
that.
not very heavy.
Yeah, it's 2 pounds, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is what the average American generates at home in a year.
In a year?
Yeah, about 2% of that. And this is both recyclable and non-recyclable plastic. So, for example, there's these bottles of cat food supplement in here that we use for our cats and things like that.
Well, let's just leave this right here.
Okay.
So we can...
So it's things that I either couldn't avoid or acquired accidentally. And I'm still doing it. I'm still collecting my plastic just to sort of keep myself on track.
Oh my goodness, it's inspiring. But I also saw the video from your website the other day, and we're going to play it now for our viewers. And this is some sort of confession, isn't it? Let's watch it.
Yeah.
I admit it, I was addicted to plastic. I took double plastic bags at the grocery store every time I went. And I drank bottled water all the time and just threw the bottles in the trash. I didn't care. My addiction was scary.
It's very scary.
And dangerous. But then I found out that it was dangerous not just to me, but to animals. Sea animals and birds that eat plastic, and it kills them. And then I found out that plastic never really goes away. It just breaks down into tiny pieces, but it stays around forever. I want to help you kick your addiction too. So I created a website called myplasticfreelife.com. It's got tons of solutions and ideas for going plastic free. And I have a new book called Plastic Free, How I Kicked the Plastic Habit and How You Can Too. And it will inspire you. They're inspiring stories from other people who've also kicked their plastic addiction and have gone further to try to make change on a bigger level. Please join me. It's a much better way to live.
So well done. That's wonderful. Thank you. But I want to confess something as well. I sometimes buy that large can of coconut water in Whole Foods. Now I know it's aluminum, but I know it also has a ton of BPA in it. And I know a lot about BPA, actually, being an environmental health nut. But so tell me a little bit, how is BPA plastic? This is confusing to me. I read about it in your book. And so a little history on plastic and the chemicals, and how is plastic made?
So plastic is based on carbon. And plastic is a polymer, and what that means is it's lots of tiny molecules all strung together to make one huge molecule. And the molecules are so big, and plastic is so new, plastic has only been around for the last 100 years or so, that no microbe has evolved in order to be able to eat that, which is why plastic doesn't biodegrade. BPA, bisphenol A, is just one of the additives that can be in plastic. BPA is found in polycarbonate plastic, which is hard plastic with a number 7 on the bottom, although 7 can also be other types of plastics as well. As you mentioned, bisphenol A is also found in the linings of all metal food cans, except for just a handful. There are a few companies that are trying to find BPA-free alternatives. Those cans have to be lined with something so that they don't corrode.
Right.
We're not actually sure if the alternatives they're finding, though, are entirely safe either. So that's an issue.
So we know that the baby bottles now, we still have plastic baby bottles, but they no longer have BPA in them.
Yeah, so here's the thing about that. If you go to any store now, you'll see lots and lots of plastic products that are labeled as BPA free. Just because it's BPA free, though, all that tells you is that it doesn't have BPA in it. It doesn't tell you what it does have in it. When you look at the number on the bottom of a plastic container, that number tells you what type of plastic, what the polymer is.
Polymer.
But it doesn't tell you what other additives have been put in that plastic to affect all types of qualities like the stability, the strength, the softness, the slipperiness, the antibacterial properties. You know, antibacterial chemicals are often added to plastics. Heavy metals are sometimes added to plastics, PVC, for example. Flame retardants are sometimes added to various plastic products. So the problem is that we don't get to necessarily know what those chemicals are because manufacturers aren't required to disclose them. They keep their recipes secret for proprietary reasons. And there was a study done testing various kinds of water bottles. Some had BPA in them and some didn't have BPA. And all of them were found to have estrogenic activity, which means they mimic the hormone estrogen in the body. And so they're affecting many different systems in our bodies that hormones affect. So we can't really necessarily know that any plastic is safe because we don't know what's in it. And also because in this country, we don't follow the precautionary principle. We wait to see if something is harmful before trying to get it taken off the market, instead of ensuring that it's safe before it goes on the market.
Which makes us some kind of guinea pigs for experimental lab animals.
Yeah.
In some way, good grief.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, we are actually using ourselves as guinea pigs.
Yeah, just to see whether it's working out.
Yeah.
So it's a large message that there's a lot of plastic everywhere. So how do we live without being like you and obsessed and counting all the plastic? And, you know, are we ruining our world and are we guilty because we're not living like you are?
Well, one thing that I try to stress on my blog and all throughout my book is that by showing things like this, which looks very extreme, I'm not trying to suggest that everyone should be as extreme as I am and count every tiny little bit of plastic and obsess about that, because I think we need change on a much bigger level. You know, we need to get companies to change and offer healthier products, and we need legislation passed to make sure chemicals are safe and to ban plastic bags, for example, and other kinds of single-use disposables. And if we're so focused on our own individual lives, we're going to maybe forget the bigger picture. But so the reason that I do this is because I think that starting with ourselves is a really good way to get started and to figure out just how prevalent plastic is and to learn to be mindful about our choices. And so I created the website and the book to let people know how many different alternatives and choices they actually have, and to give step-by-step instructions for how to get started. But you know, it's taken me 5 years to get to where I am, and I don't think people should try to do this all at once.
Yeah, it's a large, but it's important to take the step. But it looks like, do we have too much stuff? I mean, are we buying too much stuff? I mean, why do we need all this stuff in our lives? And when I read through your book, I see that, you know, it's quite a life change for you. And in fact, you're probably too young to remember, but from the 1960s, from The Graduate.
Yeah.
Did you see that movie?
I have seen it.
Yeah, she's seen it. Anyway, a great scene is, I just want to say one word to you, Benjamin. Plastics.
Yeah.
It's the future. So,
and it was right, wasn't it?
It was
right. Very predictive.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
It certainly appears to be, because I started collecting this stuff, and it's everywhere in everything.
Yeah.
But how do we disentangle ourselves, therefore, from the economic aspects of this and the jobs that we need, etc.?
Yeah.
This is a major part of our culture and our economy now.
It has become that. This is a complicated question, but for me, one thing that's been really helpful and really important is just to reduce my consumption of stuff from the start. So something that I feel is really important is, even though this is a book and my project is about reducing plastic, I'm not advocating switching one disposable material for another disposable material. So, for example, instead of giving up plastic bags and switching to paper bags, we should bring our own reusable bags to the store, you know? Instead of switching from something made out of plastic to something made out of glass or metal, maybe we should ask ourselves, is this something that I really need in the first place? You know, so there's lots of situations where somebody will come up with a brand new, this thing made out of bamboo, or this thing made out of this or that or the other. All materials, all products have an environmental impact. So if we can ask ourselves what will truly make us happy, we'll end up buying a lot less stuff, and we'll end up using a lot less plastic.
That's a good thought. It's a good thought. So are there certain plastics that are worse than others? You know, can we recycle our way out of this? It kind of ties in with what you were just talking about. You know, you've brought some of your replacement items here. I'm thinking about your bamboo toothbrush.
Yeah. So I did bring a few things to show you. I do have a bamboo toothbrush.
I'm not one of those. That's cool.
I carry a set of reusable utensils with me wherever I go.
I have bamboo ones that I carry with me.
Yeah, so I have bamboo ones, and I even have a glass drinking straw.
Yes, no, I was wondering about that. That doesn't break?
No, it's made out of a really strong type of glass. The company that makes that is Glass Dharma, and it's guaranteed. If it does break, they'll take it back and send you another one. The thing about this, a lot of people say, well, why do you need a straw in the first place? You know, why don't you just say you don't want any straw?
Right.
Maybe you don't need a straw, but when I bring this out at a restaurant and show it to the server and say, I have my own straw, I don't need another plastic straw, it is a conversation starter, and it also helps them remember not to bring me a straw, because they do it automatically a lot of times, you know. So when I go out to restaurants or for takeout, I often bring my own containers with me, and I have reusable bags with me all the time. This bag, this is a Chico bag, and it actually is technically plastic. This is made out of polyester. They're making them out of recycled plastic now too. But the reason that I make an exception for this is because it folds up so small that I can put a couple of these in my purse, and I'm never without a reusable bag.
Right. So it's reusable.
So it's reusable, and I've had this one for several years, and I can put it in the washing machine, and it never, it doesn't wear out.
Oh, in the washing machine. Yeah, I have one as well.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's something that I say in my book too, is that people should remember to wash their reusable bags. The plastic bag industry has this big thing to do about how there's bacteria in reusable bags and how they're not stored. You know what? There's bacteria everywhere, and we wash our clothes, and we should just wash our reusable bags.
That's a good thought. Good thought. Now, what about the cosmetics? I love that.
Well,
that.
Okay, so and I can show you the cosmetics.
No,
too.
This is good. I think just
okay. So this is my deodorant. This is just a regular metal tea tin. I keep it in my underwear drawer, but you can keep it anywhere you want. And inside is just plain baking soda, and I add to it a couple of drops of tea tree oil, because tea tree oil smells good, and it's antibacterial and antifungal. And so after I take a shower, just a couple drops and then shake it up. And then after I take a shower, I just take this cotton round and put it on under my arms. And this works better for me than any deodorant, commercial deodorant I've ever used. This is probably one of my favorite solutions.
Well done. You know, in Marin County here, we are the location of the original Green Sangha.
Yeah.
And I think you're a member of that.
I am.
So tell us a little bit about that, and what other organizations you're involved with.
Right.
What is this Plastic Pollution Coalition?
Yeah.
And I think that ties into understanding that there might be alternatives to manufacturing plastic, which is talking then on the systemic level and societal level as an important aspect.
So starting with Green Sangha. Green Sangha is a spiritually based environmental organization. We have meetings once a month. There's a meeting in the East Bay. There's a meeting in Marin. There's one, I believe, in Sonoma. Once a month, we get together, and first we meditate, and then we plan environmental actions. And the idea of the organization is to meet other companies that we might be asking to change. We'll write letters to companies to ask them to do something different. And the idea is to meet them from a place of connection and love, rather than as adversaries, and rather than making enemies, because that really doesn't work. That doesn't help. It just makes people angry. Right. And Green Sangha has a Rethinking Plastics program, and a big display that they bring around to events to explain to people about plastics, and they also do presentations about plastics.
Right.
So that's greensangha. And Sangha is SANGHA.org.
Right, Buddhist.
And the Plastic Pollution Coalition is an organization that was set up to try to bring together all the various environmental organizations and scientists and leaders and even celebrities and everyone who's concerned about the plastic pollution problem in one place. And they have a plastic-free campuses initiative. They're working on lots of different types of projects. And as far as I know, it's the only organization that's devoted solely to the plastic pollution problem and nothing else. You know, lots of other environmental organizations have plastic as part of their initiative, and Plastic Pollution Coalition is all about plastic.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, we're getting closer to the end of our time together. So I really wanted to find out how does living like this affect your own journey, your own spiritual journey? And do you find that you're living in a more personally integral way?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's nice to live in a way that's mindful and in a way where I'm aware of the things that are coming, the physical things that are coming through my life, thinking about where they came from, thinking about where they're going to go, and to make choices, conscious choices, and not just automatically grabbing whatever is convenient because that's, without thinking about it. And to know that I have choices, that it's really empowering. And what's also been good for me and empowering for me is realizing that I have a voice, and that I can speak up for what I think is right and important. Before I started this project, I didn't know I had a voice at all. And you asked me in the beginning if I ever thought I would be a public speaker, and the answer is absolutely not. And if I ever thought I would write a book, this is not the book that I thought I would write. But now I'm just so glad that I have.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's an important movement for all of us to understand that, as our increase in consciousness and awareness will then be reflected in how we live our lives.
Yeah.
And so you're acting on what you believe in.
Yeah.
And living with integrity by working as hard as you can to embody your beliefs.
Yeah.
And I think that we want to take you as a model and understand that we can do it as well. We can at least be aware of how we're doing it and what we're doing and how we're connected to everything in relationship. And tell us a little bit about how people can buy your book.
Well, the book is supposed to be available everywhere books are sold. Bookstores, online, Amazon, my website. I'm selling signed copies at myplasticfreelife.com. There are also electronic editions for Kindle and Nook.
Oh, nice.
And I'm not suggesting somebody go out and buy a plastic e-reader, but if you already have one, you can read the book there. It's available at many different libraries, although I'm told that there are waiting lists for it.
Oh,
really?
Waiting lists at the library.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate, our ability to learn from your efforts and your years that you've been working on this, and to, make our spiritual journey more important for the rest of the world as well. So, Beth, this has been really fun talking with you today, and we've really become aficionados, I think, on the journey to a better world and a better life. And it's so important for us to see the model of how that's done, and for you to take the time and effort, and to grow, find your voice, and find your spiritual journey that then enables the rest of the world to understand a little bit better about what they should do and what we can do personally, but to understand on the systemic level as well, that we need to understand what we're doing here and how to make it so that it is a safer, more beautiful world for everybody, and save those little albatross chicks and their mothers feeding them the wrong things. So we want to make sure that we're feeding our future generations as well with the right food and the right environment and the right kind of inheritance for them.
There's one thing we didn't talk about at all, which is why recycle. You mentioned something about recycling, and then I don't think I said anything about it. Okay. So I think there was something in there about can we just recycle our way out of it or something like that.
Right. So are there plastics? No, let's see. Can we recycle our way out of this? And what about these bio bags?
Yeah.
I mean, are they really okay? What about the
Yeah.
recycling? Does this work
Yeah.
well enough for us systemically?
So, you know, a lot. This happens to me so often that I will tell somebody about the project that I'm working on to reduce plastic in my life, and the very first thing they say to me is, "Oh, I recycle all my plastic, so you know that I'm fine.
I'm absolved.
I've done my part. I've recycled
Right.
all of it." And the thing is, when you put your recycling, your plastic recycling, in the recycle bin, what happens after that is it goes to a facility where it's sorted and then sold, because plastic, any kind of recycling, is a market.
Right.
And plastic, these sorting facilities sell the material to brokers, which sell it to the manufacturers who will take that plastic and make it into other products. So first of all, if there's no market for a particular material, then it's not going to get recycled. It's going to end up in the landfill. And some plastics are more recyclable than others. Number 1 and number 2 are the most recycled plastics. Second of all, plastic recycling is generally considered downcycling, because when you take a plastic bottle, for example, for the most part, that bottle doesn't get recycled into another bottle, but into some secondary product like polar fleece or polyester or carpeting, something like that. And those products generally don't get recycled. So you're just slowing down the process from cradle to grave, but the beverage manufacturers are still using virgin resin to make new bottles. And then one of the saddest things about recycling that I've seen is that most of the recycling of plastic in this country, and especially here on the West Coast, gets shipped overseas to countries like China, where they are recycled in facilities that don't necessarily have the same environmental standards that we do. And there was an expose that was done that showed a town in China called Lianjiao that had just become a toxic waste dump for the West's plastic recycling. They were melting it down, and the fumes were polluting the air, and the chemicals were going into the water, and the people were not using protective gear.
Okay.
So these are the types of things that can happen. Plastic recycling should be the last resort when we've reduced as much as we can.
So we should either reduce entirely what is being produced,
Yeah.
or find alternatives to plastic.
Right, and you asked about the bio bags. Bio bags are made from plants, but not all bio-based plastics will actually break down in a compost facility, and some of them aren't even allowed because in certified organic compost, we're not allowed to have synthetics, which is what bioplastics are.
Oh, that's good.
So they're complicated. I explain everything about bioplastics and recycling and all these things in my book in much more detail.
Great.
But to me, the most important thing is just to reduce our consumption as much as possible first.
Great. Perfect message. Thank you.